Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to Leading in a Crisis, our virtual summit, actionable business and HR strategies for navigating crisis and change, sponsored by TurnKey Coaching and Development Solutions. Today is a very special talk, Resilience in the Midst of the COVID-19 Crisis. 3 surprising ways intuition is essential to well-being with coach and healthcare expert facilitator, Deborah Munhoz. Hello, Deborah.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for being with us today and being willing to share your expertise.
I've been looking forward to it.
Awesome. I am just going to very quickly say thank you to our sponsors. I want to say thank you to the Whitmarsh Consulting Group. David and his team of ultra talented multi-channel marketing communication strategists have been instrumental in helping us put together the summit and get the word out. And I want to say thank you to David. And if you or your organization would benefit from pivoting your marketing strategy, I highly recommend reaching out to David and his team. His number is 647-966-1340. Also want to say thank you to Insperity, HR that makes a difference. Insperity co-sponsored our Leading in a Crisis virtual summit from the beginning. And when I went back and I said, what do you think about offering something for free to our listeners that would be useful? They thought about it and said, well, how about a free HR financial analysis report and debrief? And let me share with you that this is actually a really high value freebies. It will take our business performance advisor over there anywhere from 3 to double that in hours to work with your HR budget. And what it is it supports HR professionals who had a budget that's now been tossed out the window due to COVID-19 to kind of take a look into what can we do now and into the future and differently to identify our costs associated with our current strategy versus an alternative strategy. So if our friends over there at Insperity can support you with that, don't hesitate to take advantage of it. It's turnkeycoachingsolutions.net/HR report. And one final sponsor that I want to say thank you to is our internal team of crisis strategy experts and strategic planning experts. They came together to put together a data-driven crisis strategy program that is specifically useful for organizations or departments who are having to revamp how they show up for business, their budget for business, their focus, their marketing, their product line, their processes. Even obviously many of us are having to adapt our workforce. Having someone facilitate that dialogue for the greatest alignment with your team can be incredibly helpful for speedy results. So reach out if we can be of assistance there at 281-469-4244. A little bit about me. I am the CEO and founder of TurnKey Coaching and Development Solutions. We are an enterprise learning and development solutions provider. We have experts in every major metropolitan area in the U.S. and in key hubs globally. And our services include organizational development consulting to management consulting to outplacement services and strategic planning and team development. What I am most proud of right now is our Leading in a Crisis Summit. We have experts like Deborah on every Wednesday and Thursday through June, and we are looking forward to hearing what you would like for us to feature on our show, we're going to call it. So reach out if you found anything useful or if there is an expert you would like for us to invite to present. So I am now going to introduce Deborah. So Deborah Munhoz is a leadership development coach. She is a facilitator for healthcare organizations. She specializes in supporting women in healthcare leadership. Now, here's what's interesting. Deborah's signature resilient leader methodology has a different approach. She approaches leadership in a different way, leadership development, I should say. And our aim is to amplify synergy, which ends up resulting in greater resilience, greater influence, and frankly, lasting impact. So prior to launching her coaching career, Deborah was co-owner of a successful startup home infusion pharmacy and healthcare company, where she led general management of the company's statewide interdisciplinary teams. Deborah also has a master's degree in health sciences administration and a bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of Oregon. Now, on top of that, Deborah is a certified professional coach through the Academy of Coach Training. She is also a professional certified coach with the International Coach Federation. And then finally, she's a certified physician development coach through the Physician Coaching Institute. So there's lots more I could go on and on about Deborah's expertise and what we're going to talk about today. But I'm going to turn it over to Deborah. Deborah, share with us what we're going to learn today.
Well, thank you for that extensive introduction. It makes me realize, oh, I've been apparently doing these things a long time to have that long of a list. So I'm not sure if that's, it's a nice reminder of the journey. So thank you, Anissa.
Absolutely.
You know, what's interesting, I'm really excited about this program, about 3 surprising ways that you know, the intuition is connected to our well-being. And I was asked to do this by actually a group of women physicians. And I was excited because speaking about intuition is not usually, you know, the request. So I'm really excited to share that in this environment also. And I want to be upfront with information about contacting me later, because some of the points, the comments might trigger something that you're thinking, oh, I might want to ask us a question, or that maybe is a little too personal for you know, online, or maybe something will percolate later and you would think, oh, I want to ask Deborah about that. So I want you to know now that I will be sharing contact information. So if you have those questions, you know that you can access me later.
Perfect. And we'll also put it in the chat box so folks that are on the call can make sure they have it readily available.
Great. And we're going to be discussing a variety of practices today that do support your well-being. And chances are some of them you already do, and that's great. And you might hear something that you think, oh yeah, that's worth trying. And you might hear something that you think, no, that's really not something that I want to try. My invitation is to pay attention to those feelings and notice, you know, how you feel about different things that you hear. And if you hear something that doesn't sound like something you might normally try, you know, maybe give it some aspect of it a try and see if there's something is valuable there to you. And just a comment also about the principles I'm going to share. They really are business principles. I've been in the workforce and with businesses for over 30 years. Business principles, positive psychology, and also real life experiences from my clients. So that's kind of, you know, some of the basis of the comments that I'll be sharing. But I am going to share with you 3 ways that intuition helps well-being. Have a little exercise and some stories. So that's where we're going.
Awesome. I was just sharing with you, Deborah, that earlier that I don't think we talk enough about, frankly, the power of intuition in business. I am a believer that we are always using instincts, intuition, hunches, inner guidance, and that there is a negative connotation around intuition as if it's woo-woo or, you know, too airy-fairy. So I'm looking forward to this talk because I know you utilize this in your coaching with folks that are in the trenches right now of the most stressful job in America, physicians and in healthcare.
Well, and that's really why this topic now, Anissa, is because we need all of our resources. And it is a resource that we have, and sometimes we forget about it. And to be resilient, to impact our well-being as much as possible, that's why this is so timely.
Perfect.
Awesome. So shall I go ahead and I have a couple of slides to tee things up. Shall I go ahead and now?
Yes, show us your deck and get us teed up.
Okay, let's do that, and we'll get this going.
While you do that, I'm actually going to type your contact information in to let everyone know how to get a hold of you.
Awesome.
Okay. That's the right screen.
That's the right screen. Okay, good. Love technology when it works.
For sure.
Okay, so the environment that we're in is, it's unprecedented. It's a crisis, and it's true for healthcare, which is the industry that I work in primarily, but it's true for all industries, whatever industry that you're in. And just recently, a couple of weeks ago, actually, Optum Health took a survey, and it was a survey of 7 industries from hospitality to healthcare. And what they found is nearly 55% of those employees are reporting worse well-being. And 40% are less productive at work. And 27% are actually reporting a decline in physical health. So well-being is so important. It's having impacts personally for us, and also for the businesses, whatever the industry that we're a part of. So it's really something that is important to be paying attention to. And in this situation that we're in, the COVID-19 crisis, whether you're in healthcare on the front lines or not, for all of us, it's bringing up anxiety, frustration, and often fear. And the reality is it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. And so it's really important, I think urgent is the right word, that we find a way to improve our healthcare, to improve our well-being, which really is connected to our health, so we can find our balance and ride the wave of this crisis. We want to be on top of it now and into the future. And so that's why it's important that we explore how intuition is key to our well-being. And I'll share with you a few ways that your inner voice, your intuition, actually helps with well-being. And like I said a moment ago, we're talking about well-being because intuition is a natural tool. And I'm sure that you, Nisa, like me, I want to bring all my resources to the table right now for well-being and for decision-making, and just for who I am showing up in the world.
Yes.
So as much as I love this elephant, I'll take him down.
Elephant is amazing, actually.
I know.
Awesome about what you're about to share with us.
It's such a metaphor for needing to balance the wave. So it makes me smile every time I see it.
Likewise.
Okay, so we're back to where we need to be, right?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So let's define our terms to go into this. And intuition is that inner voice that tells you something is true without you not necessarily being able to identify how you know it's how you know it. You don't know quite where it comes from, but you know it. And so that's kind of my working definition of intuition. And so we're going to explore how intuition, your inner voice, unlocks well-being through balance, through boundaries, and resilience. And so you think about that elephant that we were showing a moment ago, and ask the question, how do we stay steady? How do we stay balanced? So we actually have the choice of responding or reacting to all these unprecedented challenges that we're experiencing. Because the COVID-19 crisis, it really has knocked a lot of us off balance.
Yeah.
And it's really important in a crisis that we're even more steady than normal, because nothing's normal right now, right? Not much feels very normal. Yeah. And our intuition can bring us back to balance when we're thoughtful about how we're reacting or responding. Now, it's not an either or thing, because sometimes you need to react. Like if the person in front of you is not breathing, you need to react.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like when the person, maybe a team member asks you a question and there is no emergency at the moment, you probably want to be a little bit more thoughtful about your response. You can take a moment. And what I find is really a tool that I rely on and teach my clients is that your breath is a handy and a fast way to interrupt those mental processes. You know, all the chatter that's happening, that anxiety and frustration bring up. And if we can, interrupt those mental processes, it actually gives our intuition the opportunity to show up, so that you can respond more intentionally instead of reacting.
So how does someone do that? How do they use, and tell me if you're going to get to this shortly, but how does someone use their breath intentionally to expand intuition or to reconnect? What is it? Yeah.
So I have a little exercise that I use and teach my clients, because it's effective and it's fast, and we always have our breath. And so I'll just tell you what it is, and then we're going to do it together, just so you can actually get a sense of how it feels.
Great.
And so it's just a simple inhale to the count of 4, hold for 2, exhale for the count of 4, and hold for 2. And so just do that with me for a moment and notice how it kind of gets you out of your head and back into your body really, really quickly. So if you inhale for the count of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold, 1, 2, exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 1, 2. And then of course you can rinse and repeat, given however much time you have. A couple times is ideal. And just notice how, it does shift your focus from your head to your body, and it allows your intuition to come forward more readily. It creates a space, if you will. And you might experience intuition as a thought, a feeling, a sensation, or just a knowing. And it makes you more resourceful, so that you can respond to that person in front of you in a more thoughtful way.
Why does that work? Why does breathing, something so simple we're doing all the time, when it's done intentionally, what is it about that has magic in it?
I think that there's so much information about mindfulness practices, but I think what's most important is that when we shift our focus from our head to our body, we get present. And it just, sometimes intuition is a body response. It just creates a little space so we can be more resourceful. And even if there's not intuition, just your body chemistry changes almost immediately by taking some breaths.
Okay. Thank you.
I imagine that there's some ways that you use that already, Nisa.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am, over the years, that has expanded from, meditation to I use a lot of walking meditation, so breathing during walking and or exercising, and in between on stressful days, intentionally increasing. So breath, just like what you just did.
Yeah. And whether it's, I'll go out if I'm thinking about something or I'm trying to solve a problem or I just need some inspiration, I'll go for a walk. And inevitably something new comes to me because I'm not thinking about it. I'm focusing on, moving. And even if you're not on a walk, just the interrupting the patterns and breathing can create some of that same spaciousness for something new to occur to you. Something, an inspired hunch, a new way of looking at something that might be useful right then.
And I know I don't have the science at my fingertips, but there's been studies that prove that.
Yes.
And I always think of Michelangelo, who would specifically say, I'm still working, even though he would take 2 weeks hiatuses or a month hiatus.
Exactly.
And then he would come back and this new inspiration was at his fingertips. It was part of his ebb and flow of energy.
Right.
Okay.
It's a more holistic approach. I know it's true for me. I think it's true for a lot of particularly Americans, that we're pretty head focused.
Yes.
So we can have a more holistic perspective if we, include, our body also.
So I want to tie this back to something you said earlier, which is this is a resource. This is not some wishful thinking. This intuition that you're talking about is a resource that can be cultivated, and breath is one way to do that. Am I getting that right?
Thanks for connecting those dots. Absolutely. Yeah. And there's so many other ways, the whole body of knowledge around mindfulness. There's so many ways. And this is one that is always at our fingertips, always at our disposal.
Great.
Awesome. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and move into the next area, boundaries, and how boundaries can help us unlock wellness. And, it's an interesting question about how can we connect in spite of the boundaries that are separating us. We sometimes think about boundaries in a different way, but boundaries are up for people in different ways now, even because we can't be together. Look at how we're connecting. We can't share space. And the changes in the physical boundaries is really getting in the way of communicating and connecting with each other. And, these physical boundaries, it enhances the need to connect emotionally, because if we can't connect, physically, we need to connect some other way, and emotionally, connection is key to our well-being. It's key to our well-being, and it's actually key to the people that we care about. And so how else can we connect? And we're talking about the physiology of mindfulness, the physiology of connection, oxytocin. You probably think of that in terms of like a mother and child. When they connect, they bond, and there's oxytocin is a hormone that's naturally released. And it's a hormone of safety, of bonding, and of attachment. And it's released by touch, by movement. But what's interesting is even remembering feeling loved, feeling connected is enough to release oxytocin, this hormone that makes us feel connected. And so even though we're missing each other and maybe missing physical touch, there are other ways that we can connect. And how we listen with somebody, to somebody, with somebody, can actually cross the boundaries of space and create connections that build trust and understanding. So I'm going to make a distinction between 3 levels of listening. And as a coach, you probably know these. But the way we listen to people can create more connection.
Can I ask you a real quick question, clarifying question? When
Yes.
I heard boundaries, I thought you were going to share with us, it's important to say no and it's important to have your boundaries, but you're talking about spatial boundaries, or help me understand there.
We do have, so yes, that's often how boundaries are spoken about. And what's up for people these days are different kinds of boundaries. We have physical boundaries, physical barriers are creating new needs. And we can cross these boundaries, the barriers that are in front of us, so that we can, feel more connected.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I think, it's like, it's a different twist on boundaries, but I think that we're feeling boundaries in a different kind of way these days.
Okay, and so one of the exercises you're going to share with us in a minute about multiple levels of listening is helping us to cross this spatial boundary or this connection boundary or this I guess that is the word, the boundary of not being with someone or the
Right.
boundary of not being someone else.
Right,
So,
right.
okay, I'm tracking with you.
Yeah, no, that's all questions are good, because whatever question you have, somebody else has.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, because connecting is key to our well-being, and we do have these boundaries that are unusual and challenging, and listening is a way that we can cross those barriers that are being created.
Okay.
So, and whether it's face-to-face or just like we're doing on Zoom, and so many of us are doing virtual communication, and we can still create that connection that's so important to our well-being. So the first, level one listening is, it's really ego, it's more ego directed. My attention is on me in level one listening. And what that looks like is maybe I'm telling you something, I'm explaining my situation. Most likely I'm thinking about what I'm going to say next. And that's actually the level of listening that creates the least connection, because it's very, focused on me. My attention's on me. Level two listening, there's really more, it's more about our heart is connecting. We expand our attention to include the other person. And what that looks like is we're listening to the emotion of what they're saying. We're listening to the energy. If I'm speaking really fast like this, maybe I'm stressed, or, it's a clue about what's going on for me. And we can also listen to the other person for maybe what are they not saying. How often these days do you ask somebody, how are you? And they say, yeah, I'm fine. And you're thinking, no, you're not really fine. And so your attention is on them. And in level two listening, maybe we're paraphrasing, we're asking them questions to help us understand their perspective. And we're definitely not telling them what to do. It's our attention is on them and their experience. And then level three, I like to say that the higher self is observing. Not only is our attention on ourselves and the other person, but we've expanded our attention to include the whole environment. So for example, maybe a siren goes by that we can both hear. And I might say, what does that siren mean to you in our conversation? And it's really like a metaphor to expand the container of the communication. And you do that not just trusting everything might have a purpose, a value, and not being attached to whether it's useful or not, but just a way to connect at another level. So those different levels of listening, if you pay attention to connecting more at the heart level, or even including the bigger environment, that's where people are going to feel connection the most.
When you say they're going to feel the connection the most, when people get to this level three?
Well, let's just say level one, when our attention is on us and what am I going to say next and what does this mean to me, then that's the least connected kind of listening. But when we're definitely focusing on the other and maybe even our shared environment, that's where people feel more connection.
Okay. And there are these 3 levels of listening.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming, this is a question, but my assumption is that we all traverse through all 3 of those levels at any given moment. Is that accurate?
I think that probably most of the time we're in level 1. We're sharing information. Okay. We're focused on ourselves. Mm-hmm. And to the extent that we can be intentional about, I want to connect. I want this person to feel that I'm focusing on them. Then when we're paying attention to how they're coming across, what they're not saying, and really putting our attention on them versus ourselves, they're going to feel the connection.
That makes sense. And, I think that we've all experienced folks who, when we talk to them, they don't really hear us. I have a good friend who's been a friend for a long time. Fortunately, he won't be listening to this, but speaking to him is a little exhausting because the entire conversation is all about what's in it for him. And
right.
Loving, appreciating, learned a lot in our friendship over the years, but it's exhausting having those dialogues because there's never an exchange of energy where
mm-hmm.
where I'm a piece of the conversation. There's not the depth of connection. Is that kind of what happens?
And you feel that, right? You feel it. It's like you don't feel the connection.
Mm-mm.
And, inevitably, and as I teach my clients, particularly level 2 listening, about asking good questions, asking open-ended questions with their staff in team meetings, because it's a way to, get information about what are you thinking, what do you need, opening up the dialogue. And so it's a really important leadership skill to be able to listen and be intentional about being open to what's the other's experience, what do they need, and what can I learn actually as I listen to be a better leader, to do my job better, and create connection, which is so important, at work or anywhere else.
So on that note, help me understand how that connects with bolstering our intuition. The different levels of communication, and in particularly my understanding of level 3.
Mm-hmm.
I can, and I'm going to make a statement, but I'm also looking for the question inside of this. But my personal experience is that it's when I can draw back my focus mm-hmm. and take in the environment, including the energy between us. The nuances of tone, the nuances of body language, the nuances of what I've just heard them say maybe 4 or 5 times that we haven't actually addressed. There's a whole variety that goes into level 3 listening. Mm-hmm. That then produces, this is the question, is that what inspires sort of that intuitive gut response of there's something more that perhaps I need to address or understand or clue myself into?
I think that you're saying it really well, Anissa, and by taking our attention off of us and expanding our intention to include the other or even the larger environment, the definition of intuition being that you know something, you get a hunch and you don't quite know where it came from. There's more opportunity of that happening when you're in those other levels of listening. Mm-hmm. And it might give you the information, the next step, that you need in that situation, just by kind of pulling back and being open to the inspired hunch that can come in those interactions.
Well, what's interesting, and tell me if I'm taking us off, but when we do a little bit of the study of intuition in business or performance, we look at what police officers say. The ones that are the ones that everyone wishes that they were like are the ones that they have a hunch about something. Right. They have a hunch about when someone's guilty versus not. And naturally, that's not always accurate. But those who are the best in those roles, be it EMTs or police officers or first responders, they are constantly using their intuition. How do they develop that? How are people intentionally developing it and trusting it?
I think trusting it is the key word there. Anissa, I like to think about it as it's another data point to include into the mix. We have our education, we have our experience, and that inspirational hunch might take us in a direction that we might not have ordinarily gone by what our past experience is, or even what we've learned in our formal education. And so it's that extra resource, extra tool in our toolkit that, and like everything else, when you come to trust it, then you factor it in. You give it a chance to maybe add value.
Yeah. Any mother that has ever caught a teenage daughter sneaking out of the house and has no idea why they woke up, can understand intuition.
Exactly. Yeah. Good. Good question. So let me go on and talk about the other area that working these days. I was talking about working with leaders, and leaders normally need to keep the pace. And leader can be of an organization, can be of a family unit, can be of a team. Leader is a broad term, but particularly during a crisis, it's my clients are asking me, how can I be resilient? How can I keep up the pace of what I need to do normally, and now even more, without feeling drained? And that's really what resilience is about. The definition that I like for resilience is the ability to recover from or adjust easily to misfortune or change. And change is what we have so much of, and we need to be able to adapt. We need to be able to adapt, to be resilient, so that we can cope and hopefully engage effectively with the new variables that are all around us. And so our resilience is really important. And so one of the ways that I like to think about resilience is that we are resilient when our head, our hands, and our heart and our energy are all aligned. And what I mean by alignment is there's really no conflict between what I'm thinking, or what I'm feeling, or what I'm doing. Everything's moving in the same direction. There's a flow. And when there's not alignment between what I'm thinking and feeling and my behavior, then my resilience is blocked. I'm not going to be able to bring all my resources forward, and something's going to feel off, and I'll know it. Mm-hmm. And so just a short story, a brief story to demonstrate that. My client, Melissa, she had just gotten a big promotion right before COVID burst onto the scene. So, imagine the luck of the biggest promotion of your life, right before COVID.
Wow.
And she was feeling overwhelmed, which is really a symptom of resilience being blocked.
Okay.
And in her new role, she was trying to balance the needs of administration, of the faculty, and also the residents that she was training. And she was talking about, the effort was really starting to drain her. And this was, right before COVID. She was already, it was a big job. And so and this is where the intuition piece can come in, even to noticing when something's out of alignment. I asked her to check inside, let her intuition have a voice, and ask, what feels out of alignment? Where is your resilience being blocked? And so when we thought about those different areas, head, heart, energy, hands, she realized that it was her thinking. it was her mind that wasn't aligned, and that was blocking her resilience. And we knew that because her heart was open to finding a solution. In fact, with this leader, empathy was really a strength of hers. She knew what people at all levels of the organization, what they needed, what they wanted. And she was very empathetic. And her hands were ready. She was willing to do the job and actually typically knew what needed to be done. And her energy was really up because she had passion to draw from. She was so behind the mission of the organization and committed to the people and the work that they were doing. But her mind was not aligned. She was doubting herself, and she was questioning, am I right for this role? And so that was where the alignment wasn't happening. And once she realized that, then we could shift her work. Then the work became to shift her thinking from doubt to confidence. And she just needed to really claim her full leadership potential. And as we talked and worked and coached, she could really see how she was perfect for this role. In fact, her natural strengths were exactly what was required in this COVID crisis. And so with that clarity, then she could really move forward and not feeling overwhelmed and drained. And things came together quickly so that the crisis could be met with resilience. And then she could be the resilient leader that people were really counting on her to be. And so that was just a, example of the importance of aligning head and heart and hands and energy so that our resilience, we can have maximum resilience.
And so connecting the dots from where you've started, the getting back in touch with our body, using breath, using whatever practices help us, clean our mind, wipe our mind for a moment.
Right.
The 3 levels of listening, of expanding our listening capacity to much more than what's being said or heard. And then, this piece is about checking in and listening internally.
Right.
Can you share with us a little bit more about, how does intuition show up inside effective leadership or inside effective responses in a crisis?
I think that we were able to kind of diagnose, if you will, where the block was in this situation by looking at what was working. Her heart was in the right place. She was very empathetic, and she was committed, and the energy, and she was willing to do the work. But just by noticing, the intuition came in with a sense of where are things out of alignment, and that was checking in with herself, talking about it and exploring what was working. Of course, was a helpful foundation, but it was helpful for her to notice, what's out of alignment here is my thought processes.
And then when a leader is able to realign or have that epiphany of what's interfering with my resilience, what do they do with it then? How does that influence effective leadership decisions, for example?
In this case, this leader, it was really a self-confidence issue, the doubt. And when she could actually see, my mind's getting in my way, and we looked at that more carefully, then we could have a deeper conversation about how am I perfect for this role, so that she could, see, regain her self-confidence. And then when that piece was in place, then all systems were going forward, going forward. Okay. It was a self-confidence.
Yep, that's very helpful, because I know that we all, at any given moment, have our own self-doubts.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'm aware of the time. Should I just kind of go ahead and?
Yes, please. Yeah. What? I'm sorry I interrupted. Did you have more? Another point to share?
Just that really what you were sharing about you know, the key points. Do I have that on the right slide?
You do. Yes.
Awesome. Just you know, to summarize that, you know, the three ways, you know, some different ways, hopefully, than you thought about previously, that intuition can help with well-being, with boundaries, thinking about boundaries a little different, with balance, which, you know, is about, you know, connecting, and also with resilience. And my goal here is that you've got some different ways, you know, to be inspired about how to use intuition as a resource for your well-being. Some different ways to think about it. And I loved to hear from anyone about, you know, how that works out for them. Some little, you know, tidbit that they picked up about ideas on how resilience can help with their general well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And so
you have put together a free workbook called Create Your Personal Leadership Brand. Tell folks a little bit about that and how they can get a hold of that, and then how they can get a hold of you, as well as, you know, why do people reach out to you? What do you do in your work that is that someone may be interested in hiring you for?
Well, the work that I'm doing is primarily, you know, there's at different stages of career, leaders, maybe they have a expanded role, like the client I was just giving the example about, and they want to really look at how can I be my, you know, my best in this leadership role in this situation. And so identifying what their strengths are and their passions, and that's part of what the leadership brand process is about, is who am I, what do I care about, so that I can show up that way consistently. And that's really what a brand is about, is knowing who I am and what I contribute, and having that show up in word, thought, and deed, if you will. And so that's what a leadership brand will help one do. And so then with that process of what you want to accomplish as a leader, and what you bring to the table, then how do we integrate that into your different roles? And so that's, you know, the work that I do with leaders at primarily healthcare, from, you know, CEOs to physicians to nurse leaders.
Excellent.
And this is a process that I do with clients. And so, you know, I hope you'll go to the website and download it, and you can get some of that. I want you to have that benefit too.
Perfect. Very good. Well, my takeaways are, I want to return back to my breathing and remember to use my 3 levels of listening more intentionally. So I've found this conversation stimulating.
And if everyone can take away one tidbit and use that, then that makes a difference.
I think so. Well, Deborah, thank you very much. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Do reach out to Deborah, do reach out to myself if we may be supportive, and everyone stay safe and healthy. Deborah, thank you so much.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Take care.